Alright guys, today we'll be reading this book called What Was the Alamo? So this book is, so last chapter we read is chapter 1, Come and Take It. But I can tell you, it has been a good reader, and I'm against someone. So we're gonna back out reading chapter 2, The Army of the People. The rebels fighting for freedom called themselves the Army of the People. They were all volunteer and elected Stephen F. Austin as their leader. By now, Austin has changed his mind about war. Why? In 1834, Austin was thrown in jail. All he had done was ask if Texas could become more independent. The answer was no. Austin then wrote a letter to warn his fellow Texans about the Mexican government's hostility, and for that he was in prison. The Army of the People under Austin marched from Gonzales toward the town of San Antonio de Buxa, or Buxa for short. Today, it is known as the city of San Antonio. In Buxa, the rebel army planned to face off against Santa Anna's troops stationed there. At that point, the army included about 300 men, a ragtag bunch of farmers, shopkeepers, and craftsmen. They hoped to pick up more volunteers on the way. Few had military training. They had no uniforms. They wore buckskin breeches, shoes, or moccasins, sombreros, top hats, or coonskin caps. They rode American horses and Spanish ponies, Mustangs, and mules. On October 27, 1835, the army arrived outside Buxa. Many thought it was the prettiest spot in Texas they ever seen. About 1,600 people lived there, mostly Tijuanas. The bell tower of the Church of San Fernando rose up between the two town squares. Beyond the town center were mud and stick shakes, and then cornfields. To the east, across the San Antonio River, was the Alamo. About 650 Mexican soldiers were stationed there in the town. The leader was General Martin Perfecto de Gas. He was Santa Anna's brother-in-law. Inside the Alamo, the soldiers had built up a ramp and a platform on what was left of the dome of the Alamo Church. They placed cannons there that could fire over the church itself. They had also blocked off streets and set up 5 cannons in the town squares. The Army of the People didn't plan on attacking Buxa. That did not seem possible. Instead, Austin and his men settled in for a siege. A siege is when forces surround an enemy and win them around. In time, the enemy's food and supplies will run out and they will have to surrender. For weeks, the Army of the People waited, growing more and more discontented. Many lost patience and went home to their families. They were replaced, however, by new arrivals from the United States eager to fight and to win their son's land in Texas. Winter arrived, bringing cold weather and sickness. Stephen F. Austin, who was among the sick, had to travel to the United States to ask for money for the Texian rebels. That left the Army of the People without the popular Austin as leader. By December, it seemed as if the siege would be called off. Then, Texian rebel Ben Milam rode to Bexar. Originally from Kentucky, he had been a U.S. soldier. He fought in the War of 1812, and he was ready to fight again. Miriam galloped up to the men and shouted, "Who will go with old Ben Miriam and fight?" Miriam was just the kind of man the rebel soldiers needed to find them up. About 300 men in the army rushed to join him. At 5 o'clock in the morning on December 5th, 1835, the battle in Bexar began. Miriam's men ran through the cornfields into Bexar. The Mexican artillery opened fire with clouds of grape shot, clusters of small iron balls. The Mexican soldiers were in uniform and looked like a real army, but most of the soldiers had a gun called the Brown Bears. It was heavy, took a long time to reload, and wasn't oxygen. The Mexican gunpowder was often so weak that musket balls sometimes just bounced off the Texians. The Brown Bears was no match for the Texian long rifles and double-barreled shotguns, which was easier to fire and more accurate. The long rifle also had a much longer range, as far as 200 yards, twice as long as the Brown Bear's 100 yards. In Mexico, the rebel army moved from house to house. About 135 Tejanos also joined in the fight. In some homes, the rebels only found scared Bexar residents who fled in their pajamas. But in some buildings, they found Mexican soldiers. Then fighting would break out with pistols and knives and sometimes bare fists. The fighting went on for 5 days. Both sides were exhausted. Ben Milam was killed. About 300 Mexican soldiers had deserted. General Carlos ordered all his remaining troops inside the Alamo. That was a mistake. There was no food or no water and no way to defend the fort for any length of time. Carlos was ready to surrender. So the general and his men left on December 15, 1835. The Texians allowed them to keep some of their guns and ammunition, and even gave them a cannon. That way the Mexicans could defeat themselves if they got into any fights with Native Americans on the way home. The Army of the People had won on Bexar. The Alamo was theirs. Only 5 rebels has been killed. About 150 Mexican troops were dead. The rebels were sure they had seen the last of the Mexican army until spring least. They were wrong. Dun dun dun. Okay, so this book is good. I like the book where it came from. It's going to be like 9 minutes and a half. But anyways, chapter 3 is coming tomorrow on page 34. I hope you enjoy. But friends, bye-bye. See you later.